Denver Broncos have hired former Saints head coach Sean Payton, baby. We're holding. Ah!
What the hell is pimento cheese?
Tom Brady has announced his retirement from the NFL. For real this time. Come on, kick the field goal, take the points. Win the game.
No, you have to say that.
See you later. Welcome to a rather bright episode of Ruffing the Passer. As you can see from the sun to my right. It is episode 89 of the show that talks football, miscellaneous stuff, and mostly football. And we'll be starting off with some of the biggest news in sports we've received in the last day. Jon Rahm, two-time major winner, Masters champion of last season, however many time winner on the PGA Tour, Spanish golfer, black belt in some sort of martial arts, has signed with LIV Golf for a whopping $300 million base salary. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. With the chance to earn, a lot more money, potentially maybe $500 million. Has a 25% equity stake in his own team. Not bad. And boy, I am so excited that Jon Rahm has signed with LIV Golf. I mean, I gotta say the signing felt a little weird leading up to it. I'm not gonna lie. Jon Rahm didn't really seem like the LIV type. He seemed kind of content on the PGA Tour. He was a nice guy. He's making tons of money anyways. But in the last 2 or so weeks, rumors spread that he was signing with LIV Golf, and they just kept getting bigger and bigger until yesterday it was officially announced that Jon Rahm would be signing with LIV Golf. He showed up to his press conference in Dubai, where they're hosting their LIV Golf qualifier tournament, in a sick LIV Golf sports jacket. And I just gotta wonder, where can I get one of those? I mean, it looks sweet. And I love that he's already embracing the villain role of LIV Golf. He's like, I went from the PGA Tour to LIV, and now I've become a villain with my sports jacket. He's looking like a jock. It's kind of cool. Of course, people are up in arms about this, because they always are. How dare he ruin to LIV Golf? How dare he ruin his legacy? With what? Why would he ruin his legacy? He's already won 2 majors, a Masters and a US Open. Same as Dustin Johnson. He's won a bunch of tournaments across the globe, like Dustin Johnson. And now he's signing a LIV Golf for a bunch of money. And he's still only 29 years old. He has a chance to help develop the future of the sport by owning a team, by playing on the futuristic golf league that is LIV. I do not understand why everyone's saying, it could ruin his legacy. Because what? He might not win another PGA Tour event? Because he might not win another major? Plenty of guys who won 2 majors and just didn't win after that due to unlucky circumstances, due to them not playing. You never know when your career is going to end. Like Martin Keimer, who is on LIV currently, won 2 majors, one in 2010, one in 2014. He was on top of the world, number 1, and then fell off the map completely. Haven't seen him since. Rory hasn't won a major in 10 years, and no one's like, oh man, he really ruined his legacy that he hasn't won a major in 10 years. No, it hasn't. Is anyone talking about Rory's legacy? I don't think so. The whole Jon Rahm's legacy is ruined by LIV is dumb. Ooh, Brooks Koepka's legacy was ruined by LIV. Oh wait, no it wasn't. He's won 3 times on the tour. 3 times. Tied for most since joining. And he's won a major on LIV Golf. But I thought it was impossible to win a major on LIV Golf because they only play 54 holes in a scramble. Not scramble, that would be hilarious. They only play 54 holes in a shotgun start. It cannot possibly work. But yet here we are. Brooks has won a major. Jon Rahm is obviously primed to win majors. He now has a team. And boy, I'm just so excited to see him tee it up in Mayakoba in February, the first LIV event. Because obviously the LIV Tour is already stacked with DJ and Bryson and Brooks and Cam Smith, and the list goes on and on. But now they had Jon Rahm to the mix. And that's just scary, man. It's going to be fun to watch. 48, great golfers, great to good golfers. Some legends sprinkled in there like Sergio Garcia and, Phil Mickelson, Lee Westwood, who occasionally will show up. It's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to see it. I wonder what he's going to name his team. But again, I ask, where can I get one of them jackets? That thing is sick. He's like, do a Crushers jacket? I don't know. I think that would be awesome. There are also rumors that he might bring in some other PGA Tour players to join his team, like his Ryder Cup teammate, Tyrrell Hatton. Would be very interesting. Obviously, that would be a scary guy you would not want to go up against in team golf. He also might bring in Tony Finau, who he's good friends with, and I feel like Tony Finau makes perfect sense. Family man, won a lot on the tour, has like 6 kids. He's Mormon. And I don't know, I feel like he likes the family life. He probably wants to play less golf while also making a ton of money. He's usually competing. And I feel like he'd be a good fit there. Jason Day, I think, would be a good fit on LIV. Just also has like 5 kids. He's in the latter half of his career. The Ripper GC needs another Australian who's actually decent. I feel like he would be perfect for Ripper GC. I mean, you could bring back Matt Jones, and they'd have Matt Jones as their worst player, which is a solid team. Cam Smith, Mark Leishman, Jason Day, Matt Jones. I'd be thinking Mac Jones, but it's not Mac Jones. That would be perfect. But man, I'm excited to see what happens with LIV. I imagine they're just going to add another team to the roster instead of removing a captain like Martin Keimer from the Cliques. I think they're just going to give Rahm his own team, and there'll be 13 teams next year. I think there are 13 teams. Are there 13 teams? Yeah, 13 teams. There'll be 13 teams next year. Each will have 4 members. There'll be 52 players teaming it up, etc. Obviously, you're going to have new infusion of talent with the LIV Golf Qualifier. More PGA Tour players will definitely be leaving. We already know Andy Ogletree who won the International Series on the Asian Tour, is coming over. Big round, big week for LIV Golf, especially with Dean Burmester, Stinger GC member and absolute pounder of the golf ball, just crushes it. Winning back-to-back tournaments in South Africa. Good kudos to you, man. He's going for a 3rd straight this week, which would be awesome on the DP World Tour. Just like, yeah, I played LIV, showed up, and then won 2 tournaments. Obviously, you got Joaquin Niemann winning the Australian Open. That's huge. Good week for LIV Golf. Also, just one more thing. Those people who say he's going to ruin his tour, ruin Jon Rahm's legacy by leaving the PGA Tour. Is he actually leaving the PGA Tour? I mean, he's just joining LIV Golf so he can play, their 14 events. But I thought the merger's happening. LIV Golf and PGA Tour are creating new co. They're going to have mixed tournaments at some points in the majors. Obviously, majors will always be a mixed tournament. LIV should get world ranking points, I would think, by now. And Rahm can still play in PGA Tour events if the merger goes through and they lift the ban on LIV players who defected, which they should, if they want to have any sort of relevancy to their tour anymore. Because then Rahm will show up. He'll show up for, the big tournaments that he's won. Maybe the Century Tournament Champions, just as warm-up for LIV. Will definitely show up at the Players' Championship. A few other events sprinkled here and there, like the PGA Tour FedEx Cup playoffs, if he makes it. So I don't think Rahm's legacy is going to be that much affected by the move to LIV. Honestly. Maybe all backfires and Saudi's back out of the deal and then the players left out of the tour. Who knows? I personally doubt it, but still. Kudos to Jon Rahm. Huge move. In some less great news that we had over this past weekend, the College Football Playoff Committee has ranked the final 4 teams heading to the College Football Playoff. Makes sense. And it goes in this order. And most of these make sense, Michigan, number 1, yep, they beat Ohio State. They went undefeated. They were just dominant the entire season, even with losing Jim Harbaugh in the first 3 games. Jim Harbaugh in the last 3 games. That makes perfect sense. Put them at number 1, especially after Georgia lost. Number 2, Washington went undefeated. Michael Penix is the Heisman should win the Heisman, in my opinion, because he's been great. He has a rocket arm. He's been spectacular. I still have no clue why anyone in their right mind thought Oregon was going to win that game. Who thought Oregon was going to beat Washington? I'm sorry, Bo Nix is good, but, like, Penix is a stud. Just an absolute stud. I would highly consider drafting him if you're any NFL team out there right now. Obviously not over Caleb Williams and Drake May, but, I mean, I'd keep an eye on Penix. Number 3 is Texas. Odd that they're ranked over Florida State, even though Florida State's undefeated, but it makes sense because they went mostly undefeated. I mean, they only lost one game, and that was to Oklahoma, one of their rivals. It was close. Oklahoma had a decent season, or a pretty good season, only 2 losses, and they destroyed Alabama. So yeah, that makes sense at number 3. And number 4, the team that should be there anyways because they earned it. I mean, they fought hard, won a lot of games. Florida State. Alabama? Why is Alabama there? I'm sorry, did Alabama go undefeated? I don't think so. They won 12 games this year. And the SEC, but that's fewer games than Florida State won. I'm sorry, but didn't Florida State go undefeated? Shouldn't they be number 4? This is utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. How do you not rank Florida State number 4? I don't care that they'll probably get walloped in the, college football playoff in the first round. That happens to a lot of teams. It happened to Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma Sooners every single year. It happened to Cincinnati in the college football playoff. It happened to Notre Dame, but they made it there. They earned their way there, and they had a chance. I'm sorry, Alabama did not earn their way to the college football playoff. They beat up on a bunch of mid-teams all throughout the season. They lost to Texas in blowout fashion, and yet they get into the playoff because why? Why? Because Florida State's quarterback got injured? You're going to penalize Florida State because their quarterback got injured, something they have basically no control over. That makes 0 sense to me whatsoever. I understand that maybe because the quarterback got injured, then maybe they wouldn't do well in the playoff. But then again, back in 2014 when this whole thing started, who made the college football playoff with an injured quarterback? Wasn't it? Oh yeah, Ohio State. They not only lost their first string in Braxton Miller, they lost their second string in J.T. Barrett, and then Cardale Jones had to make his first ever start in the college football playoff. And not only did he win the first game with an upset over Alabama, he won his second game destroying Oregon. But if we're going by today's standards, Ohio State should not have been in that playoff because, you know what, injured quarterback. You know who got injured recently and should be out of the playoff? Trevor Lawrence, yeah. You know, he got injured, so therefore Jacksonville should give up their playoff spot. I think that'd be fair. You know, the Eagles should have just quit in 2017 after Carson Wentz got injured, just giving up their playoff spot. Yeah, they wouldn't have done anything with a backup. This is utterly ridiculous. What do you want Florida State to do? They won all 13 games. They beat up opponents like LSU. They beat up Clemson. They beat up some good teams out there. And they, in a Power 5 conference, went undefeated. Never in the history of college football has an undefeated team ever missed out on the playoff. But Alabama gets in there because why? And I know the excuses. Florida State could have been destroyed. We already mentioned that. It might not have happened. Florida State played bad games against their rival Florida. Oh yeah, that was a close game that Florida State won against a bad rival. I know Alabama didn't play poorly against rival at all and needed a 4th and 30 to score a touchdown to win. Had to convert a 4th and 30. Why aren't we kicking out Alabama for that, huh? You almost lost to Auburn. Auburn. The SEC is better. Oh, really? The SEC is in the weakest season of its life. maybe not his life, but in the past few years, they had a losing record outside the conference. Georgia was kind of mid. Well, they were great, but like they weren't nearly as dominant as the past 2 seasons. Alabama got blown out by Texas. Ole Miss was the next closest thing. LSU played terribly. Auburn played terribly. South Carolina absolutely blew up this season after a good season last year. But no, the FCC is just better somehow. That doesn't make any sense. What was the SEC's record against the ACC this year? In which Florida State plays in? Oh yeah, it was 4-6. The ACC had a better record over the SEC this year. Florida State almost lost to Louisville and they played terribly. Oh really? That's funny. I guess Alabama didn't have any games like that where they lost to. Oh wait, they almost lost to South Florida. It was tied 3-3 heading into the 4th quarter. But no, we're not going to penalize Alabama for that because reasons. There are also excuses about, Florida State playing a soft schedule. Oh, like Alabama's always gets the toughest schedule in the world. Man, whew. Such a tough schedule for Alabama playing South Florida and Tulane and all those other really tough schools out there. Yeah, it was so tough for Alabama to beat an LSU team that had an injured Jaden Daniels in the 3rd quarter. Yep. It was definitely harder than when Florida State kicked LSU's butt in week 1, 42-24, with a healthy Jaden Daniels playing. But no, Alabama should be ranked ahead. This is so ridiculous. You know why Alabama was ranked ahead of FSU? It's because ratings. It's because money. That's it. Well, I hate to break it to you. Sports are not about ratings. Or at least the idea of sports aren't about ratings. The reality of sports they're about ratings. Obviously, they want, like last year in the NFL, they put the Seahawks, Lions, and Packers were all vying for a playoff spot. But if the Seahawks won their game, then the Lions would be out of the playoffs no matter what. So what did the NFL do? They played the Lions and the Seahawks game early. They won. The Lions were knocked out. So that the Packers, all they had to do was beat the Lions and they'd be in the playoffs because the NFL wanted the Packers in the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, it didn't happen because the Lions beat the Packers, but that was set up for purely rating standards only. We don't want Seattle or Detroit in there. We want Green Bay. The committee wanted an SEC team in there because the South obviously makes up most of the college football hype and craziness, and it's fair because they have been the most dominant college football conference in the nation, bar none. Maybe the Big Ten technically has more championships. I don't know, but you get the point. The SEC has more championships. That's why. It's because of money. They wanted ratings. They don't care about the fairness of the sport, the fact that, an underdog like FSU could come in and potentially steal a national championship. They don't care about that, the integrity of sport. They just want ratings. That's all. All they care about is ratings and money. I don't know why the ESPN would have a vested interest or why the college football playoff would have a vested interest in Alabama being there or an SEC team being there. Doesn't make any sense to me at all, except for the fact that the college football playoff's always hosted on ESPN. And ESPN just happens to be the one that runs the SEC network. Interesting. So do you think ESPN has a vested interest in seeing an SEC team there? Do you think it makes them more money on their secondary networks? Perhaps. Whereas the ACC is currently provided to you by the CW. The CW? Okay, that's a little weird. But I am once again sticking up for my CW. It's a strange hill to die on. But dang, they put up some surprisingly decent sports. They got LIV Golf, and now they have the ACC, who has become my adopted conference. That's not true. I haven't adopted the Pac-12 for the time being. But still, it is utterly ridiculous that Alabama got in over Florida State. It's dumb. just ridiculous. And there's also that other argument like, oh, they beat Georgia. Oh, congratulations. You ended a Georgia 29-game win streak. That happened. That was going to end anyways. It was going to end anyways. It was just going to happen. You can't continue to win on forever. So, yeah, some team had to do it, and Alabama had to be the one. But, yeah, no, it was such an impressive win for Alabama to beat Georgia when they needed a BS call on on a catch to help them. The Georgia special teams jumping off sides and the kicker missing a field goal by this much. Also, congratulations on beating a Georgia team with a injured Brock Bowers, who was not 100% out there. No Stetson Bennett and no Jalen Carter, and was not nearly as dominant as the previous 2 seasons. Good job. Impressive stuff from you. You really earned your way in a weak SEC with a weak schedule, playing down to opponents, and just getting by because your name is Alabama. Just exactly like you did in 2018. Don't think I haven't forgotten about that. When Alabama got into the playoff, despite not playing in the SEC championship and having 2 losses, they got in over Ohio State, I think, who I'm pretty sure won the Big Ten. They also got in over UCF, who were undefeated. Let us also not forget that the next following year, UCF went undefeated again and didn't get in the college football playoff, despite going undefeated. It's just ridiculous. Florida State, please beat Georgia and claim the national championship. That's what I want you to do out there, all right? It'd just be hilarious. Moving on. The Pittsburgh Steelers, oh gosh, lost to the New England Patriots last night on Thursday Night Football, 21-18, in what was a surprisingly high-scoring game. They scored 38 combined points with Mitch Trubisky and Bailey Zappi? What is this world coming to? I gotta say, I did not see that coming. I was very disappointed because I played Pittsburgh defense, and they didn't exactly show out because they had 2 sacks and an interception, and somehow that block punt didn't count. Don't ask me how. Doesn't count as a start, apparently. Should, but it didn't. But either way, this was just utterly embarrassing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is their second straight loss to a 2-10 team. To a 2-win team in the NFL. That's just horrible. Absolutely horrible. 5 days apart, you lose to 2 5-win two-win teams. Seriously? And I think it's fair to ask, what the heck is going on in Pittsburgh with that coaching staff? Every single season, it ends the exact same way. It goes the exact same way. They get a bunch of BS wins because of turnovers, calls, magical plays from George Pickens, and they look dominant. Then they face a team that they have every right to beat, and either they play down to their opponent and win late, or they get a BS call at the end, or they just lose it because they're Steelers. And I just have to wonder, what is Mike Tomlin doing? Is it fair to ask questions at this point about Mike Tomlin? He goes in, doesn't appear to change anything in coaching, and the results are always the same. Start off hot, lose it by the end of the year, lose in the first round of the playoffs, or just miss it. But still have a winning record. I think it's fair for us to question what Mike Tomlin is doing, and fair to ask, can you make some changes? How do you lose to New England, who are playing their backup quarterback, whose name is Bailey Zappi? You allow 140 yards to Ezekiel Elliott. You allow Bailey Zappi to look like the second coming of Tom Brady by throwing 3 touchdowns in the first half. What is going on? And I don't understand what's going on in Pittsburgh. You still can't get an offense going for some weird reason, despite the fact that you have Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, and Najee Harris, who can be good. I'll just say he can be good. How are you not getting more points? How are you not becoming more dominant What is up with the Steelers' lack of just effort, it seems like, every single week? Are they too lax? Are they too hard? I don't understand. Are they just somewhere in the middle? What's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers? And of course it's against New England that they lose, because if there is one team where Steelers BS does not work against, it's the New England Patriots. Belichick's like, yeah, this is just, what? No, we're not allowing TJ Watt to get a miracle sack. No, we're not allowing George Pickens to make the unbelievable catch. We're just going to beat you by just not allowing that crap to happen. And it works every single time, pretty much. I mean, he's 9-3 against Mike Tomlin all time. So, or just the Steelers all time. There's that. You lost this game, and now if Denver wins and Cleveland loses, you'd be currently out of a playoff spot at this moment. I think they are currently out of a playoff spot at this moment, because if the Texans win, I think they take the Steelers spot, which is interesting. So, Steelers, you got to change something up. They got to change something up, because whatever you're doing now just is not working at all. There's another thing I want to talk about that was in the news this past 2 weeks, which I'm sure a lot of people saw. I think it was 3 weeks ago, but I never got around to talk about it. Tom Brady said in an interview with Stephen A. Smith that he thinks the modern NFL game is quite mediocre. I mean, the play hasn't been there. He's like, the coaching is kind of off, and the penalties, I don't really agree. They're not allowed to play defense. And you know what? I 100% agree with him. The NFL's play has been pretty mediocre as of late. I mean, you just watch games since 2020, when they signed the new CBA and players weren't practicing nearly as hard. They're not allowed to be coached as much, I guess. And the play has been so sloppy. Like, just so sloppy. There's so many, like, quote-unquote great games that are obviously tight, but just the plays, the way the defense allows things, the fact that offenses have bad turnover after allowing a rusher free on Thursday Night Football. I mean, how do you allow Micah Parsons free there in Seattle? I 100% agree with Tom Brady on this. I mean, how on earth is it that we've gone this far in the NFL season and there's still no clear MVP or no one who really deserves an MVP right now? Brock Purdy? You can make the argument that he's being carried by Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Kyle Shanahan and a great O-line and Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk, and you get the point there. He's had those 3 terrible games when Deebo Samuel was injured. Jalen Hurts has obviously the most wins of any quarterback in the NFL right now at 10-2, but his play has not been great either. I mean, he has a lot of rushing touchdowns, but has thrown a lot of bad interceptions. His passer ratings, completion percentage, okay. Nothing special. Dak Prescott's obviously been playing well, but he's lost to teams like Philly and San Francisco. If this were another season, like, it wasn't that long ago we had clear-cut MVPs. I mean, last season we had Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes playing both great, who could have been the MVP. Obviously, Mahomes was. It should have been Jalen Hurts, but anyways, you get the point. And not long ago before that, Aaron Rodgers absolutely lighting up the world. The play has been so mediocre right now. I mean, except in the skill positions, like the MVP right now should go to a guy like Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey, because both of those are playing unbelievably well, yet neither are being talked about for MVP when they should. And I mean, you know how bad the NFL play has gotten? The rules for defense have been changed to be so strict recently. I mean, just the past few seasons, pass interference, any underthrown deep ball is called pass interference, pretty much. You can't touch a player more than 5 yards down the field. They call unnecessary roughness on the most BS of hits. They call roughing the passer on those BS of sacks. That kind of thing happens in the NFL, and obviously offense has exploded. But since 2020, you think that would keep going up, but like the offenses recently have been so bad. Like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense have been terrible. MVS is dropping everything. Tua, if you play him in fantasy, he's not been great. I mean, like, seriously. Sam Howell is putting up more fantasy points this year than Tua is, and I don't understand why or how. It kind of annoys me because I play Tua over Sam Howell every week. It's like, Like, this would never happen in the NFL a few years ago. Like, everything's been so unbelievably sloppy. Russell Wilson is throwing for a bunch of touchdowns this season, but only has thrown for like 150 yards a game, it feels like. It doesn't make any sense. Every quarterback's either okay or trash. There's no standout guy, it feels like. Lamar Jackson's had a down year. Josh Allen's had a down year. Offenses in general, besides, have just been mid. And defenses have gotten better despite all these rule changes that have happened. Like, one of the few past, it just boggles my mind. It boggles the mind. What the heck is going on in the NFL? And Brady is 100% right about it. Maybe not his take of it's coaching that's been worse. I don't think coaching's been worse. I think coaching's been good. I think more like Jason Whitlock, that players, because they're not training as hard, practicing as hard, or for as long, that's why the plays look so terrible recently. I think that's more it. But there is one thing Brady said that just makes my blood boil. I am not going to lie. When Brady said that he hates the fact that quarterbacks aren't allowed to get hit, defenders aren't allowed to play defense, my jaw dropped to the floor. I'm like, that is rich coming from you. Mr. Brady, do you realize you are the reason these rules for you can't touch the quarterback, oh, don't hit the quarterback, oh, defenses can't play defense, can't hit hard. You do realize you're the reason this has happened. Every single time you got touched or knocked over in the pocket, you're like, ref, throw a flag, ref, oh, ref. It is, you are the reason the NFL has to protect the quarterback so much because you got injured one season, which isn't your fault. They're like, oh, we gotta make the game safer. And it doesn't help that, as mentioned, you call for a flag every time you get touched. You were always in the huddle like, no, that wasn't a flag. Oh, you should have called that defender. But you're telling me you didn't like it? You don't like seeing defense not good? Well, you're the reason for it. It would be one thing if he had just been a guy who takes hits, doesn't call out the refs for a flag. That'd be one thing. But he's the guy who's always parading for himself to get a flag. And maybe it's just because of competitive bias and it helps. Sure. But it is so ironic and just hypocritical to see him being like, oh, defenses can't play. You're the reason for it. You're the reason they can't hit hard. It's unbelievably ridiculous just to see him up there. You know, oh, there are times. I used to really like Brady, not on the field, but more off the field. And now I'm just starting to not like him because he seemed like kind of a diva after he left New England. He got his head coach in Tampa Bay, Bruce Arians, he got him to resign, even though he was basically just fired and moved up a position. But they didn't want to fire him because he won them a Super Bowl. He had him resign because he didn't like him. Oh, I'm sorry, he was the guy who led you to a Super Bowl and resurrected your career. How did it work out with a guy like Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles there, Tom? How did it work out when you didn't have a great head coach coaching you? Huh? Interesting. There are times when I cannot stand Tom Brady, and this is definitely one of them. Just the way he's like, oh, I hate the fact that defenses can't hit. You're the reason. You are the reason. And I don't like this guy sometimes. Seemed like a nice guy. The more I learn about him, I'm like, I just don't know. Seemed like kind of a jerk. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he isn't. I don't know. I haven't met him. But it's stuff like this that makes me like, yeah, I really don't like Tom Brady sometimes. I don't like him. Sometimes. All right. Last thing on the docket. Well, second to last thing on the docket, I just want to say, I hope the Broncos win this next week. I just hope they do. Anyways, week 14 NFL predictions. It's that time. Come on, scroll. Well, apparently I had the Steelers beating the Patriots. That didn't happen. I don't know why I thought the Steelers beat the Patriots. Anyways, let's get on to the rest of the games. We're 0-1 now. Buccaneers at Falcons. I have the Falcons winning over the Buccaneers. Rams at Ravens. I have the Ravens beating the Rams. Lions at Bears. I have the Bears beating the Lions. The Lions beating the Bears, excuse me. Colts at Bengals. I have the Bengals winning over the Colts, which is certainly going to look interesting now that Joe Burrow's injured. Jaguars at Browns. I have the Jaguars beating the Browns. Should be interesting. Panthers at Saints. I have the Panthers beating the Saints. That would be something. Texans at Jets. Texans at Jets. I have the Jets beating the Texans. I don't know how. All right. I thought Aaron Rodgers would be healthy. Vikings at Raiders. I have the Vikings beating the Raiders. Seahawks at 49ers. I have the 49ers beating the Seahawks. Bills at Chiefs. I have the Chiefs beating the Bills. Broncos at Chargers. I have the Broncos beating the Chargers. I don't know. Eagles at Cowboys. I have the Eagles beating the Cowboys. Titans at Dolphins. I have the Dolphins beating the Titans. And I have the Packers at Giants. I have the Giants beating the Packers. And that shall do it for this episode 89 of Ruffing the Passer. I hope you have enjoyed. Please hit the subscribe button if you like my content and you want to see more. Share this video with your friends and family. Hit the like button if you really did like it. And hit that bell if you want to stay notified when all uploads have been uploaded at that exact moment. I thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you later. Goodbye.